The sky was burning with fire. Human warships clashed against alien cruisers, turning the stars into a battlefield. Laser beams cut through the darkness. Explosions lit the void, and broken ships drifted like dying giants. The war between humans and the alien race called the Dravari had reached its bloodiest stage. Among the chaos, Commander Joran stood tall on the bridge of his flagship. He was a Dravari leader, known for his strength and loyalty to his people. His armor was marked with scars of many battles, and his eyes were sharp like blades. To his soldiers, he was the image of discipline, a father of war, unshaken by fear. But deep inside, Joran carried a wound that never healed, the memory of his lost son, taken by the war years ago. The humans fought with desperate courage. Their ships, smaller and weaker, moved like hunters through the fire. One human vessel broke apart under Dravari fire, spinning out of control, pieces of metal and flames scattered across the battlefield. Joran ordered his gunners to focus on the larger enemy ships, ignoring the broken wreck, yet his eyes followed it. Something about the destroyed vessel pulled at him, as if fate itself was whispering on the screens. He saw a small escape pod shoot out of the wreck. It spun wildly, heading straight into the battlefield. No ship could survive long in that zone, not with debris and plasma fire everywhere. Joran hesitated for the first time in years. He should have ordered it destroyed. It was surely carrying a human soldier. The enemy, but his hand froze and his heart pounded. "Secure that pod," he said suddenly. His crew looked at him in shock, but obeyed. The tractor beam pulled the small pod into the hangar. Joran felt something stir in his chest, something he thought was long dead. Inside the hangar, smoke hissed as the pod opened. A young human soldier lay inside, barely alive. His face was pale. Blood on his uniform, but his chest rose and fell. He could not have been older than 20. Joran stared at him, and for a moment, he was not looking at an enemy. He was looking at his son, the same age, the same desperate struggle to live. His heart twisted with pain. "Dispose of him," said one officer coldly. "He is the enemy." Joran's eyes turned sharp. "No," he said, his voice strong. The officer flinched, unused to hearing such tone from the commander. The human stirred, opening his eyes weakly. They were blue, filled with fear and confusion. He whispered something in his language, words Joran barely understood. "Please, don't." Joran felt his throat tighten. This was madness. He knew to protect a human was treason. If the council discovered this, his honor, his rank, his very life would be destroyed. But Joran's heart refused to let the boy die. "Take him to the lower chamber," Joran ordered. "Keep this between us." Some soldiers exchanged uneasy looks, but none dared to question him. As they carried the human away, Joran walked slowly behind. Each step felt heavier, as if he was carrying not just the boy, but the weight of his lost past in his mind. He heard the laughter of his son long gone. He remembered the day the war took him, and how powerless he felt. Now, standing before another dying child, even if human, he could not let history repeat. The boy collapsed into unconsciousness. His weak hand slipped, but for a moment, it brushed against Joran's armored fingers. That small touch shook Joran more than any weapon ever had. He clenched his jaw and whispered under his breath, "Perhaps. You are meant to be mine." Outside, the war still raged. Human ships burned, alien cruisers roared forward. But deep inside the alien flagship, in a hidden chamber, a decision had been made. One that would change not just Joran's life, but the future of two races, because in the middle of a war built on hate, an alien father had chosen to protect a human enemy, and fate had just begun to write a new story. The alien flagship drifted through the dark void, scarred from battle, but still powerful inside its walls. The secret of Commander Joran was being hidden like a dangerous flame. Few knew that a human enemy lay in the lower chamber, weak and wounded, protected by the very commander sworn to destroy him. The chamber was cold and dim, lit only by the faint glow of medical screens. Ethan, the young human soldier, lay on a metal bed. His body bandaged with alien technology, he breathed shallowly. Caught between life and death, every sound of the alien ship echoed in his ears like thunder. When his eyes opened, he saw not a hospital but the lair of his enemies. He tried to move, but his arms were too weak. Fear rushed through him. Why was he alive? Why had they not killed him? Then the door slid open with a hiss, and the tall figure of Joran entered. Ethan's heart pounded. The alien shadow stretched across the chamber, massive and threatening, Joran's glowing eyes fixed on him. Not with hate, but with something Ethan could not understand. Compassion. Ethan's voice cracked. Why? Why am I here? Why didn't you kill me? Joran stood silent for a moment, his deep voice finally answered, calm and heavy. You. Remind me of my son. Ethan blinked in disbelief. Your son? I'm your enemy, he said with weak anger. Joran's face darkened, a storm of grief in his eyes. My son was taken by this war. He was about your age. I could not save him, but perhaps I can save you. Ethan turned his head away, fighting back tears of pain and confusion. He wanted to hate this alien, the murderer of his people. But the way Joran spoke did not sound like an enemy. It sounded like a father. Still, trust was impossible. Ethan whispered, if your people find me, they'll kill me, and they'll kill you too for protecting me. Joran's jaw tightened. I know. That is why no one must discover you. Not even my closest officers, but secrets are heavy things, and already. Some aboard the ship had noticed their commander acting strangely. Whispers spread in the corridors. Joran leaving the bridge often. Orders given in hushed tones. Strange movements in the lower decks. One officer in particular, Lieutenant Varric, watched carefully. Varric was loyal to the Dravari code. Sharp-eyed and ambitious, he noticed the commander visiting the restricted chamber too often. Suspicion grew like poison in his mind. Meanwhile, Ethan slowly began to recover. Each day, Joran brought him food and water. Sometimes he sat in silence, watching the boy sleep. Okay. As if guarding him from nightmares. Other times, he spoke of his world, his son, and the ancient traditions of the Dravari. Ethan listened, though at first with hatred in his heart, but slowly he felt the weight of Joran's sorrow. One evening, as Joran adjusted the healing device around Ethan's arm, Ethan whispered, "You could have let me die out there. Why didn't you?" Joran's hands froze for a moment. Then he answered softly, "Because death is too easy. Because even enemies deserve a chance to live. Because I cannot watch another boy die while I do nothing." Those words struck Ethan deep. He thought of his own father back on Earth, a man he may never see again. He thought of how fathers on both sides, alien and human, had lost sons to this war. For the first time, Ethan saw Joran not as a monster, but as a broken parent. Yet, fear remained. Every sound outside the chamber made Ethan shiver. What if the crew discovered him? What if Soren was forced to hand him over? That night, while Soren was away, Ethan forced himself to sit up. He limped to the door, weak but determined to escape. He pressed his hand to the alien console, but it did not respond, frustrated. He pounded on it, whispering, "I can't stay here. I'll get him killed." The door slid open suddenly, and Joran stood there. Ethan froze, his legs trembling. I was trying to leave," he admitted. Joran's eyes burned with quiet anger. "But not at Ethan. If you leave, the others will find you. They will not spare you. And I will lose you, just as I lost my own." The words shocked Ethan. He saw the truth in Joran's face, a father's pain, raw and unhidden. Ethan lowered his head, guilt pressing on him. "I don't want to be the reason you die," he whispered. Joran stepped closer, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You are not my death. You are my chance at life again." Outside the chamber, unseen, Lieutenant Varric listened through the shadows. His eyes narrowed, his suspicion now confirmed. The commander was hiding a human, a crime against the Dravari. Varric's lips curled into a cold smile. This secret would not remain hidden for long. The alien flagships sailed silently through the endless black of space. Outside, the stars shone like cold fire, but inside the hidden chamber, a fragile connection was beginning to grow. Ethan, the human soldier, still weak from his wounds, slowly began to recover. His body healed, but his heart carried scars of fear and hate. He often stared at Joran with burning eyes. "You should have killed me," Ethan whispered more than once. "I am your enemy." But Joran never raised his voice, never showed anger. Instead, he answered with calm patience. "You are not my enemy here. You are my son now." The words felt strange, like fire and ice mixed together. Ethan wanted to reject them, but deep inside, he felt something stir. His real father was far away, maybe even dead in the war, and here stood an alien. Calling him son, it was madness. Yet, it did not feel like a lie. Each day Joran visited, bringing food, adjusting the healing machines, or telling stories. He spoke of the Dravari homeworld, with mountains that touched the clouds and oceans that glowed under alien suns. He spoke of honor, tradition, and the son he had lost. Ethan listened quietly. Sometimes he responded with his own stories of Earth, of green fields, blue skies, and a family he missed. At first, their words were sharp, full of mistrust, but slowly, like drops of water carving stone, their hatred began to fade. One evening, Ethan asked, "Your people hate mine. Why would you risk everything for me?" Joran looked at him with heavy eyes. "Because I once had a son. And when I look at you, I see him. The war stole him from me. I will not let the war steal you too." The chamber grew silent after those words. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He remembered his father's smile, his mother's voice. He thought of all the families broken by this endless conflict. For the first time, he wondered, maybe this alien felt pain just as humans did. But outside the chamber, danger grew. Lieutenant Varric watched from the shadows. His suspicion had turned into certainty. The commander was protecting a human. It was not only against the law, it was against the soul of the Dravari people. Varric's ambition whispered in his mind. If he exposed this, he could rise in rank. Maybe even take Joran's place. Still, Varric waited. He wanted proof. So he ordered a small spy drone to follow Joran's movements. The drone recorded every visit, every word, every moment between alien father and human son. The trap was slowly closing inside the chamber. Ethan struggled with his own storm. He wanted to hate Joran, but he could not. The alien's kindness was too real, too constant. He remembered the day Joran's hand stopped him from falling. The way the commander's deep voice said, "You are safe now." Those words echoed in his mind every night. One day, Ethan tried to stand on his own. His legs trembling but stronger than before, Joran reached to help, but Ethan pushed his hand away. "I can do it," he said stubbornly. Joran gave a faint smile, the kind only a father would give. "Good. A son of mine must stand strong." The words made Ethan's chest tighten. For a moment, he felt proud. For a moment, he forgot he was human, and Joran was alien. But then, reality crashed back. "We are enemies," Ethan whispered. Almost to himself, Joran answered calmly. "Not here, not now. Here you are, mine. And I am yours." Before Ethan could reply, The door slid open without warning. It was Varric, his cold eyes shining. The boy froze, fear flooding through him. Yoren turned, his massive frame blocking the human from view. "What are you doing?" "Here." Shorin demanded, his voice sharp. Varric bowed slightly, but his smile was thin. "Forgive me, Commander. I was only checking the chambers, ensuring everything is secure." His eyes flicked past Joran, catching a glimpse of the human behind. Him. Ethan's heart stopped. Had Varric seen him? Joran stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "There is nothing here for you, Lieutenant. Leave, now." Varric obeyed, but his smirk lingered as the door closed. He had seen enough. The human was real, and soon the council would know. Inside, Ethan whispered, "He saw me, didn't he?" Joran's silence was the answer. The boy's chest tightened with guilt. "I told you this would happen. They'll kill us both." But Joran placed a heavy hand on his shoulder and said, "Let them come. No matter what happens, you are my son now. I will not let them take you." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he whispered back, "Father." The alien flagship moved quietly through deep space. Its lights dimmed after the long battle. But inside its halls, a storm of suspicion was building. Lieutenant Varric carried the secret like a sharp blade, and he knew exactly when to strike. Joran continued to visit the hidden chamber, guarding Ethan like a shadow guards a flame. Every day, the bond between alien father and human son grew stronger. Ethan healed faster now, his body stronger, his fear replaced with strange trust. He still struggled to understand why Joran risked everything. But every time he heard the alien's voice calling him son, a warmth filled the emptiness in his chest. Yet peace cannot survive where betrayal waits. Varric had already gathered the evidence: recordings, drone images, whispered reports. The commander of the Dravari was protecting a human enemy. The council would see this as treason, and Varric would be the one to deliver it. One night, as Joran adjusted Ethan's bandages, the boy spoke quietly. "You are risking too much for me. They will find out. I should leave before they do." Joran looked into his eyes, sharp but gentle. "If you leave, they will hunt you down and kill you. If you stay, I can protect you. You are my son now, Ethan. I already lost one. I will not lose another." Ethan's heart pounded. The words struck him like a spear, painful yet comforting. He wanted to argue, but the truth was simple. He wanted to stay. For the first time in years, he felt what family meant, even if it came from an alien hand. But outside the chamber, Varric made his move. He sent a secret message to the Dravari. "High Council," his voice cold and proud. "My commander has betrayed our people. He shelters the enemy within our walls. I have proof." The council's reply was swift. "Hold position. We are coming." The trap was set. Varric smiled in the shadows, imagining himself taking Joran's place as commander. He believed honor was with him, but in truth, it was ambition that guided his steps. The next morning, alarms rang across the ship. Joran rushed to the command deck, leaving Ethan in the chamber. Reports came in. A Dravari council ship was approaching fast. The crew whispered among themselves, confusion spreading. Why was the council arriving without warning? Varric stepped forward with false respect. "Commander, perhaps they come to reward us for the battle victory," he said, his tone smooth. But Joran's instincts told him otherwise. He had fought too many wars to mistake the cold hand of judgment. Back in the chamber, Ethan paced nervously. He had overheard part of the alarm, and fear crawled into his chest. He pressed his hand against the metal wall, whispering to himself, "They know. They're coming for me. And they'll destroy him because of me." The boy's heart twisted. With guilt, Joran had saved him, cared for him, even called him son. And now, because of him, Joran's honor and life were at risk. Ethan made a choice. He would not let Joran fall for his sake. He staggered toward the chamber door, weak, but determined to escape if he turned himself in. Maybe the council would spare Joran. His hands shook as he worked the alien controls, forcing the door open. But before he could step into the corridor, Joran appeared. His tall figure filled the doorway, his eyes burning with worry. "What are you doing, Ethan?" his deep voice demanded. Ethan froze, then shouted back with trembling courage, "I won't let you die for me. They're coming. I'll give myself up. It's the only way." Joran's face twisted with both fury and pain. He stepped forward and gripped Ethan's shoulders, his massive hands steady but not cruel. "You fool," he said, his voice breaking. "If you leave, they will not spare you, and I will lose. You too, just as I lost my real son." The words struck Ethan like thunder. His knees went weak, tears burned in his eyes. I don't want you to die," he whispered. Joran pulled him close, almost like a true father. "Then stay with me, whatever comes. We face it together." Outside, the council ship docked. Elite guards marched aboard, their armor black and shining. The crew of the flagship bowed low as the counselors entered. Among them stood Varric, his smirk hidden behind false loyalty. The council leader's voice echoed across the deck. "Commander Joran, you are accused of treason against the Dravari. You have sheltered a human enemy. Do you deny it?" Gasps spread through the crew, their eyes wide with shock. Joran stood silent, his heart heavy in the shadows. Ethan listened, his fear choking him. Would Joran protect him still, or sacrifice him to save himself? The chamber door hissed open slowly behind Joran. Ethan stood there, trembling but defiant. He looked at the council, then at Joran. His voice shook, but his words were clear. "If anyone must pay for this, let it be me, not him." The hall fell into silence, and in that silence, the bond between alien father and human son shone brighter than any war. The council chamber aboard the flagship was silent. The elite guards stood ready, all their weapons glowing faintly. The counselor's eyes burned with judgment, fixed on Joran and the trembling human boy beside him. "Commander Joran, the lead," counselor declared, his voice cold as steel. "You have broken the highest law. You protected a human enemy. You betrayed your people." Every word struck the crew like a hammer. Gasps filled the room. Soldiers exchanged nervous glances, and fear spread like fire. Ethan's voice shook as he stepped forward. "He only saved me. I begged him to let me live. It's my fault, not his." But the council leader sneered. "Human words mean nothing here. Your life is worthless. The only crime is that he chose to value it." Joran's chest rose and fell heavily. His eyes burned with fury, but his voice was steady. "If it is treason to show mercy, then I am guilty." The words shocked the crew. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others tightened their fists in anger. Even Varric's smirk faltered for a moment. The council leader raised a hand, "Seize the human, and arrest the commander." The guards stepped forward, their boots echoing like drums of doom. Joran moved instantly, his massive frame blocking Ethan from view. His voice thundered, "Anyone who dares touch him will answer to me." The crew froze. They had never heard their commander speak with such fire. For a heartbeat, the hall held its breath. Then, the guards drew their weapons. Energy blades crackled, casting sharp light across the chamber. The first strike came fast, aimed at Ethan. But Joran's arms swung like a storm, knocking the guard across the floor. The chamber erupted in chaos. Blades clashed, sparks flew, soldiers shouted. Joran fought like a beast unchained, every strike filled with both rage and protection. He was not fighting for honor now. He was fighting for his son. Ethan ducked behind cover, his heart pounding, but he could not stay hidden, not while Joran risked everything. He spotted a fallen guard's weapon and crawled toward it. His hands shook as he lifted the alien blade. It was heavier than any human weapon. But his grip tightened. He had been a soldier once more, and now he had to fight again. Joran battled 3 guards at once, his armor scorched, his breath heavy. A blade cut across his arm, blood burning blue against his skin. He roared, pushing them back with a strike that shook the floor, but more guards closed in, overwhelming him. Then Ethan leaped forward, his blade striking clumsily but with desperate courage. He cut across a guard's arm, forcing him back. Joran's eyes widened. The boy was fighting at his side for the first time. Alien father and human son fought together, back to back. "Stay close to me," Joran shouted, his voice thundering above the chaos. Ethan nodded, fear and courage mixing in his chest. Together, they held the line. Joran's power and Ethan's speed blended like 2 storms meeting. One guard fell, then another. There, bodies crashing to the floor. But the council leader shouted furiously, "Enough! Kill them both." More guards poured in, their numbers endless. Joran grabbed Ethan and pulled him toward the exit. They ran through the corridors as alarms blared. The entire ship was turning against them now. Varric's voice echoed through the speakers, "Commander Joran is a traitor. Capture him and the human at once." The crew who once bowed to him now raised weapons against him. Soren's heart twisted, but his steps never faltered. He cut down those who blocked their path, his blade moving with grim sorrow. Ethan followed, fighting off smaller groups with every bit of strength he had. At last, they reached the hangar. Fighters were lined up, engines ready. Joran pushed Ethan toward one of them. "We must escape. There is no more place for us here." Ethan's chest tightened. "They'll call you a traitor. They'll hunt you forever." Joran's eyes softened, even as war raged around them. "They can call me what they wish, but I will not let them take you, my son." The hangar doors opened as alarms screamed louder. Dozens of soldiers rushed in, firing wildly. Joran swung his blade, cutting a path through them. "Get inside!" He roared to Ethan. The boy scrambled into the cockpit. Struggling with the controls, Joran fought his way to the pilot's seat. Climbing in as blasts shook the fighter, engines roared to life. The small ship lifted off the floor. Bullets and plasma fire chasing it. The hangar shields flared as the fighter shot into the void of space. Behind them, the flagship grew smaller, its weapons turning to fire. Ethan looked back, his heart heavy. Joran's eyes remained forward, steady and unbroken in that moment. Ethan knew they were not just escaping, they were leaving behind an entire world. Father and son, alien and human, united against the galaxy. The fighter ship drifted through the cold silence of space, far from the flagship they had escaped. Inside the cockpit, Joran sat tall, his hands steady on the controls. His armor burned and cut from battle. Beside him, Ethan sat breathing heavily, his heart still racing from the fight. They had escaped death, but they had not escaped the truth. Both human and alien worlds would now see them as traitors. Both sides would hunt them down. For many days, they traveled in silence, avoiding patrols. And hiding in empty star systems, Joran guided the ship with skill. Finding fuel and food from hidden caches, Ethan tried to rest. But his dreams were filled with alarms, weapons, and the sound of Joran's voice calling him son. It was strange, terrifying, and yet comforting at last. They found a quiet planet, a green world with thick forests and blue rivers. It was unclaimed, untouched by war. Joran landed the fighter on a valley floor. Hidden beneath towering trees, the engines fell silent. And for the first time since their escape, peace wrapped around them. "This will be our shelter," Joran said, his deep voice calm. Ethan stepped onto the soft ground, the air fresh and clean. He looked around with wonder. It almost feels like Earth, he whispered. Joran nodded. Then perhaps this is where we begin again. They built a small camp together. Joran hunted strange animals with silent precision. Ethan learned to start fires with alien tools. At first, Ethan struggled, his body still weak. But Joran guided him with patience. Each small success made the boy smile. And every smile healed a piece of Joran's broken heart. Nights by the fire became their new home. Joran would tell stories of the Dravari past, of warriors who fought not for war, but for family honor. Ethan would tell stories of Earth, of green fields, children playing in the sun, and fathers who tucked their sons into bed. The more they shared, the less alien they became to each other. One night, as the fire crackled, Ethan asked softly, "Do you regret it? Leaving your people, risking everything?" Joran looked into the flames, his face heavy with thought. "I regret the war. I regret the sons and daughters lost to it, but I do not regret saving you." Ethan's eyes burned with emotion. "You've given me more than my own world did. You gave me a family again." For the first time, Ethan spoke the word without fear. "Father." Joran turned to him, his chest tightening with pride and sorrow. "And you are my son," he said. His voice deep and certain, but peace is never safe for long. Far across the galaxy, news spread like fire. The council declared Joran a traitor, a disgrace to the Dravari. Human generals too learned of a soldier who had betrayed them to live with an alien. Bounties were placed, hunters sent, ships ordered to track them down on the quiet planet. Ethan and Joran trained. Joran taught him alien fighting techniques. Ethan showed him human tactics. Speed over strength, trick over power. Together they became stronger, not just as a commander and soldier, but as father and son. Still, danger grew closer. One morning, as Ethan gathered water by the river, he spotted something in the sky, a small dot, moving fast. Cutting through the clouds, his chest tightened. "Father!" he shouted, running back to camp. Joran looked up and saw it too, a ship. Approaching quickly, their enemies had found them. The campfire hissed as Joran stamped it out. He grabbed his blade and looked at Ethan with steady eyes. "We fight together," he said. Ethan swallowed his fear and lifted the alien weapon he had been training with. "Yes, father," he replied firmly. The ship roared overhead, landing in the valley with a storm of dust. Its doors opened, and armored hunters stepped out. Some were human, some were Dravari, united in hatred for the two who had broken the rules of war. One of them shouted, "Give up the human, and your life may be spared, Joran." But Joran's voice thundered back, "You will not touch my son." Ethan stood at his side. Though hunters laughed cruelly, a human calling an alien. "Father, how pathetic." But Ethan's voice cut back like a blade. "He gave me what none of you ever could, family." The hunters raised their weapons, and the battle for their new family began. Joran roared, charging forward like a storm, his blade flashing. Ethan followed, striking with speed, using every skill his father had taught him. Together, they fought. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as one family standing against the galaxy. The hunters circled the valley, their weapons glowing in the dim light. Joran stood tall, his alien armor cracked but unbroken. Beside him, Ethan held his weapon with trembling hands, his heart pounding like a drum. They were outnumbered, hunted by both humans and aliens, but neither stepped back. "Stay close," Joran whispered, his deep voice calm. Ethan nodded, his eyes locked on the enemy. "Together," he replied. The first wave of hunters rushed forward, shouting war cries. Joran met them with the fury of a storm, his blade slashing through armor and steel. Ethan darted around him, striking fast, using speed where Joran used strength. The two fought like parts of the same body, alien power and human courage. For a moment, it seemed they could hold forever. But more enemies poured out of the ship. Surrounding them, a human commander stepped forward, his face twisted with hate. "Ethan, you shame your people by standing with him. Surrender now." Ethan's voice shook, but was clear. "He is more of a father to me than anyone on earth. I will never leave him." Joran's chest swelled with pride, but his eyes burned with sorrow. He knew the truth. They could not win this battle. He could already feel his strength fading, his wounds from the last fight burning. Yet he would not let Ethan fall. Not. While breath remained in his body, the hunters attacked again, their numbers endless. Joran cut them down, but his steps grew slower, his blade heavier. A strike pierced his side. Blood pouring blue against his armor. Ethan cried out, rushing. "To defend him, father." Joran pushed him back, his voice thundering. "Stay alive, that is your duty." Ethan fought with rage, every strike driven by fear of losing the only family he had left. Yet even with all his strength, he could not hold them back alone. Joran staggered, his knees heavy, his breath ragged. Still, he stood tall, shielding. Ethan, with his massive frame, the hunters laughed cruelly. Look at him. The mighty commander dying for a human boy. But Joran's voice cut through their mockery, deep and unshaken. "I am not dying for a boy. I am living for my son." With one final roar, Joran unleashed his strength, striking down 3 hunters at once. The ground shook, weapons shattered, and for a moment the valley was filled with his power. But the effort drained him. His blade fell from his hand, his body staggering. Ethan rushed to him, catching his massive frame. "No, stay with me, please." Joran's eyes dimmed but still shone with pride. He placed his heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You must live, Ethan. You must carry my name. My honor, my story. Tell them I chose you. Tell them you are my son." Tears blurred Ethan's vision. "I can't do this without you," he whispered. But Joran's deep voice rumbled one last time. "You can. That is what it means to be my son." Then, with a final breath, Joran closed his eyes. The roar of battle faded from his ears, replaced by silence. The alien father who chose compassion over war was gone. Ethan's scream echoed through the valley, filled with rage and sorrow. He lifted Joran's fallen blade. His hands shaking but firm, the hunters charged. But now it was Ethan who stood tall. His strikes were fierce, driven by the strength of his father's legacy. One by one, the hunters fell until those who survived turned and fled. None could break the fire in his eyes when the battle was over. Ethan fell to his knees beside Joran's body. He pressed his forehead against the alien's chest, tears soaking the armor. "You were my father," he whispered, his voice breaking. "And I will never forget." Days later, Ethan stood before both humans and Dravari. He had surrendered himself not as a soldier, but as a messenger. The people stared at him with anger and confusion. Why did a human carry an alien blade? Why did he speak the name of a traitor with pride? Ethan raised the weapon high, his voice carrying across the hall. "He was my enemy, but he chose to be my father. He showed me that family is greater than war. If an alien could call me son, then maybe we are not enemies at all." The words struck deep, echoing in hearts filled with hate. Some shouted against him, some turned away. But others bowed their heads, moved by the truth in his voice. The story of Joran spread across the stars. The tale of an alien father who chose love over law, and a human son who carried his legacy. It was whispered in barracks, told in marketplaces, and sung in quiet halls, for in the middle of endless war, one choice had changed everything, and Ethan, carrying both human blood and alien honor, swore to keep his father's story alive forever.